A woman has to rush home to her mistress, but not for any reason she could conceive. This is for entertainment purposes only. This short story is only for people over the age of 18.
Isabel, often called Issy, drove quickly through the city streets as rain steadily poured down. She was trying to muster the emotion of being pissed off, annoyed, or anything negative. What she was, in an all-consuming emotion, was desperate to get home. Her mistress had ordered her to drop everything and drive quickly home. Issy had to obey. Issy had been at the gym and had been doing her daily weightlifting. Dressed in her black, skimpy, two-piece exercise outfit, she knew her body attracted a lot of attention. Hair that could be copper or bronze in different light, a jawline that was sharp and pointed, eyes the shape of almonds, and lips plump for kissing, her head was not the only attractive part of her. Since she'd been ordered to start weightlifting and dieting, her figure had morphed into a toned and ripped definition of sexy. When her mistress had ordered her to get breast implants, this only added to Issy's sex appeal. Now, Issy was trying to not hydroplane on the slick roads. She was mildly annoyed that she was only an hour away from being done with her workout when she was summoned. Issy barely had enough force of will to grab her gym bag from her locker when she had to get her keys to obey her orders. She didn't even have a chance to change clothes, or even put on a shirt, before dashing out of the gym. Still sweaty, and showing off much of her body, Issy was desperate to get home. For Issy, Mistress had not always been Mistress. 2 years ago, Issy needed a roommate to pay for her comfortable apartment. She sent the call out and Janine popped up. Jean, as she liked to be called, then, was nice, a little quiet, and very gay. Issy didn't mind that Jean was looking for women, if they had a shower schedule set up, and Jean understood that Issy was not into women. The two were good friends and loved going out into the suburbs and country to do garage sales, or garage sailing as Jean called it. It was at one garage sale that was actually an estate sale, that Jean picked up a silver jewelry box. Inside, mixed with an assortment of rings, earrings, bracelets, and brooches was one very special necklace. It had a red stone, no bigger than a peanut, but when held up, it seemed to glow, and when it glowed, no one could look away or resist what they were told. Issy shuddered when she remembered the first time she looked at that red stone. Nothing was as important as that stone. Nothing was as sexy as that stone. Nothing stopped words from going into her mind, and dominating her will, from the person holding the stone. Jean didn't know what she was doing at first, but when Issy couldn't stop herself from telling the truth, the stone controlled her mind, that Jean took full advantage of the situation and Issy. It was the first time Issy had made love to another woman. It was far from the last. That was also the night that Jean went from Janine to Mistress. In public Issy could call her Jean, or Janine, but in her mind, she was always Mistress. Issy could not disobey any order from Mistress. If Mistress desired something, then Issy would move heaven and earth to get what Mistress wanted. If Mistress told Issy to do, think, feel, believe, say, remember or forget something, then Issy could only obey. When Mistress told Issy she was to find men sexually disgusting and women highly sexually arousing, Issy felt her whole world shift. Obeying Mistress was one thing, but having a fundamental belief she'd had her whole life flipped totally around was frightening. The power Mistress had over Issy's mind was terrifying and, thanks to a command, highly arousing. Mistress joined Issy at the gym only 3 nights a week. Issy tried not to show how much she loved seeing Mistress push herself and work up a sweat. Issy also tried not to let on that she knew that Mistress was just looking for other women to conquer. Against everything that Issy used to stand for, Issy had brought women from the gym home, knowing that Mistress would enslave them too. For Issy, knowing Mistress wanted something overrode any resistance or fear she once had. Issy also knew that collecting new slaves made Mistress happy, so Issy was equally happy to betray any trust other women had in her. For now, Issy slowed just enough to get into the parking garage and maneuvered into her parking spot. Issy's phone started dinging that there were videos on channels she watched, posting something new. Issy ignored them. Issy didn't bother with her gym bag in the car. Issy did have her phone, that she looked at briefly to see all alerts showed the same thumbnail for a video, which she was sure to watch later. She had her keys as she quickly walked to the elevator and then to the crossover to the apartment building. 22 stories tall, and the top 15 stories were all apartments. 10 apartments per floor, and the building held lots of people, coming and going at all hours of the day. Mistress had gone floor by floor one day, using her red stone to enslave the people she found. Mistress didn't want them too young, or too old, but those women in the middle were fair game. Married women now had an open marriage where Mistress could use the wife for her pleasure. Engaged women broke off their nuptials, and became single, but engaged, to Mistress. Single women remained single, if all of them now were lesbians and slaves to Mistress. All of the women that were now slaves to Mistress were commanded to much the same as Issy had been with the daily weightlifting, dieting, and breast implants. Lately, Mistress had been thinking about expanding her control. Much to the surprise to a sexy internet influencer, Mistress could use her stone to entrance someone over the internet, provided the camera was a high enough resolution, and the monitor on the other end was equal. Issy was there at the airport to pick up the influencer when she arrived. The young woman peppered Issy with questions about how it was that Mistress had command over her mind. How was it that the influencer now only had sexual thoughts for Mistress? How best could this poor young woman best please Mistress? Issy wasn't jealous. Issy couldn't be jealous. If this is what Mistress wanted, then this is what Issy wanted. It didn't matter anyhow. The influencer was fun for a few days, but then sent back to her life, waiting for her orders from Mistress. It was the fact that Mistress could control a person through the internet that mattered. Issy got her key in the apartment door lock, thinking this is what Mistress wanted her for, to take over the world using videos through the internet. Issy ignored her phone's video alerts as she came into the apartment and saw Mistress standing in the middle of the living room. Something was wrong. Mistress was just standing there, naked. Mistress had recently colored her curly hair red, and her skin was naturally pale, unable to tan well, and she had a natural low body fat. Her skinny sinew muscles showed up under her white skin, barely casting a shadow. It was Mistress' dull, glassy, brown eyes that terrified Issy. Mistress just stood there, not looking, not focusing, not doing anything. Issy felt some instinct in her fight against the order she'd been given, but the commands in her mind and soul won out, and Issy came before her mistress, got down on her knees, and bowed deeply.
"How may this obedient slave serve you, mistress?"
Issy said without thinking. From the bedroom came a male voice.
"Tell her to strip naked, kneel, and pleasure herself."
Issy was shocked. She was beyond shocked. A man. A man was in their apartment. A man was seemingly issuing orders. A man was presuming to command Mistress.
"Strip naked, kneel, and pleasure yourself."
To Issy each word, each syllable was like a powerful blow from a heavy sledgehammer. Undeniable commands that pushed all other thoughts, feelings, and desires from Issy's soul. Issy found herself peeling off her still sweat-soaked top as she eyed Mistress. Issy had to get up to her feet to take off the rest of her clothes, but in seconds she was back on her knees, naked. Her large breasts, accented by nearly 800 cubic centimeters of silicone, hung on her chest as if they were bolted on. Her muscular body on full display as she felt the next part of her orders take hold. Issy's hands snaked between her legs and onto her chest. Being before her equally naked mistress and obeying her commands had already heated up Issy to the core.
"Mistress, what's going on? Who is that?"
Issy asked as she started to gasp for breath.
"Tell her to shut up."
The male voice said, still from the bedroom.
"The only sound I want to hear out of her is her cries of climax."
"Shut up."
Mistress commanded, and Issy's mouth snapped shut.
"You may only make sounds when you climax."
Questions that had been on Issy's tongue were stopped by her teeth. Issy was already twitching and jerking as her self-pleasure was making her sweat as much as she had at the gym. The growing heat, the growing pressure was putting Issy very close to the edge. When Mistress seemed to have enough wits about her to finally look down, if not entirely focus, on Issy, the kneeling woman finally climaxed.
"There you are,"
the man said, coming into the living room. He was short, squat, muscular, but with a layer of fat on him to make him look full. Issy tried to focus on him, overcome with erotic pleasure. It was difficult. Small glasses on a squashed head, giving him a scholarly look, but his beady eyes had a sinister gleam. Dressed in a flannel shirt and jeans, he didn't look like much. Issy recognized him. He'd been at the gym several times, often with. Issy knew what this was about. If she could speak, she would have said what she knew.
I actually came here looking for you,
the man said with a grin.
I wasn't disappointed that you weren't here. I thought I'd grill your roommate about what you had done to my Heather.
The man turned to Mistress and moved her chin, so she had to look at him.
Imagine my surprise when she went for something in the drawer of the end table there.
He pointed to a garage sale antique side table with a shallow drawer.
Then she brought out this.
Issy's eyes were magnetically pulled to the red stone. It seemed almost simple with the gold bail with a thin chain through it, but the small stone was blood red, and it seemed almost like a magical black hole. It sucked Issy's eyes to it, and she could not turn away. She never could. Then the stone was gone, vanished back into the shirt pocket on the man's chest. The mind-numbing effect was lingering in Issy's brain as she still continued to follow her commands to be silent, kneel, and pleasure herself.
I thought you were trying to get a gun,
the man said to Mistress, who seemed to be even slower and hollower.
That's why I knocked it from your hand. Imagine my surprise when I saw it was this, something far more powerful than a gun. I don't know why Jean looked at it. She had to know what it would do to her. I was just confused. I am a very smart man and figured it out. I figured it all out. This is how you corrupted my Heather.
Issy heard the name and tried to think. It was hard with the lingering effect of the red stone in her mind. Heather, which Heather was his? There were about 8 Heathers in their group. Issy tried to focus, but her traitorous body picked the time to go over the edge of another orgasm.
I wouldn't have guessed in a million years that my Heather had dumped me 2 weeks before our wedding, because she was somehow put under a demonic spell by a magical necklace.
The man laughed at the absurdity of it all.
See, the last thing Heather told me was she was going to hang out with one of the women from the gym. I asked who. She didn't even know your name. She just called you the big brunette with huge breasts. I knew exactly who she was talking about. By the next day, Heather was calling off our wedding and telling me that she was re-evaluating her sexual preferences. I spent months trying to win her back. She was always nice to me, but she did not once show any interest in me. That was very, very odd. When I saw that Heather got breast implants, I knew something very wrong was going on. Heather would never, in her own words, make her body look like a sex doll. That's why I started looking into you, Isabel Brown.
Issy's eyes went wide. He knew her name, her real name. Issy started to formulate a plan. She needed to figure out a way to solve this, get her mistress back, and put that man in his place. She needed the stone.
I was sure you'd done something to my Heather, and that's why I came.
The man said, and that seemed to be the end of his story.
Now, the question is, what do I do about you, both of you, all of you? Jean, here was telling me about how she enslaved almost every woman in this building. I might not be partial to women with large muscles, but I can't deny how sexy you look.
Issy eyed the man's flannel shirt pocket where the necklace was. If he got close, she might be able to snatch it from his pocket, and then she'd have a chance. He just needed to be closer.
Then Jean told me about how she was going to make a video to enslave everyone in the world.
The man stated.
That seemed like an excellent idea. Why hadn't she done so yet? Get this, Jean didn't want the burden of being queen of the world.
Issy had one possible idea. She let herself have an orgasm, so hard, so powerful, so long, she felt like she was going to pass out. Her toes curled. Her eyes rolled back into her head. There was screaming, moaning, and bucking of her body as she let the orgasm roll over her again and again. She hoped he would get closer.
That almost looked painful,
the man said, having not moved.
Tell her to freeze and don't move.
Issy's eyes shot open. It hadn't worked. He wasn't interested in getting closer. He wouldn't get closer if her mistress echoed those words.
Freeze and don't move,
Mistress said to Issy. When the man had said those words, it was like hearing a distant electronic voice recording. When Issy's mistress said those words, it was like a choir of angels sang such into existence. Issy's body froze in place. Her hands were still on and in her private parts. She found she could just barely breathe. A tear of regret did fall from one eye, which she could not blink away.
When I found out what this jewel did, I considered freeing all of Jean's slaves.
The man stated.
I figured I'd free Heather's mind and get back on track of getting married. I might still do that. However, now I feel this is a whole new route for me. I can, and will, have my Heather back. I will also have all the women Jean here enslaved, and more. Jean may not want to be queen of the world, but I am more than happy to become king of the world. Right now, all over the planet, people are seeing me on their phones and computers, swinging this red jewel and telling them new truths about themselves. Namely, they belong to me, mind, body, and soul.
Issy's eyes didn't move, but her mind was screaming in terror. She could just barely see her mistress as she swayed from standing so long. Issy's heart was breaking that she was unable to save the woman she worshipped, loved, cared for, and would do and be anything for. This man, this horrible, horrible man, was taking the gift that Mistress had and corrupting it, from love between women, to domination of the planet.
I know it works because we tested it on your neighbors.
The man grinned wickedly.
They saw the video and were more than happy to obey my every command. I'll need to see myself over there soon, since I'm sure they're getting uncomfortable being tied up so tightly in compromising positions. It's kind of funny. I had Jean here command all her slaves to watch and share my video. Well, not all her slaves. Your special Isabel. I'm going to make sure to turn you into my personal slave. I'll do whatever I want with, or to you, and you'll love it. I still slightly blame you for what happened to my Heather. As for Jean, well, I think she would make a wonderful slave to my Heather, after I free most of Heather's mind. I'm not really an honorable man. I try to be, but in this case, I'm not. Heather will obey me completely, but I'll let out her sadistic side, and have Heather dominate, painfully, Jean here.
The man got closer to Issy, still frozen, still helpless.
Jean, get your phone.
The man ordered, and the zombie-like mistress staggered off to the bedroom.
I want to see the light in your eyes dim as you realize the real truth. Men will always be better than women, at everything, including world domination.
Mistress came back into the living room with her cell phone in hand.
Jean, show Isabel my video on your phone, but let's have a little fun.
The man said, leaning forward with his hands on his knees. Issy could see the necklace in his shirt pocket.
Tell Isabel she has to stay on her knees, but she can otherwise move.
Issy wondered if he could be that stupid.
Isabel, stay on your knees.
Mistress said, coming closer with her phone.
But you can otherwise move.
Yes, he could be that stupid. Issy knocked Jean's phone out of her limp fingers with one hand. As eyes followed where the phone went, Issy shot her other hand out right into the man's pocket, hooking one finger on the chain of the necklace and pulling it free to swing in the air before the three of them. It was the first time that Issy had seen the red stone and not felt like her mind was being sucked into it. It really did just look like a partly clear, red, crystal. It almost looked like nothing special. It looked like something someone would chuck into an antique jewelry box and sell at an estate sale. The man had tried to say something, but words and thoughts failed him. Jean, no longer a mistress, but now a mindless slave to the person holding the necklace. Issy held the necklace and knew what she had to do.
Mistress.
Issy choked out.
Tell me to have free movement of my body.
Issy, you have free movement of your body.
Jean said flat and monotone. Issy painfully stood up, ignoring any wetness on the floor. She moved with painful grunts to her bare feet.
Oh, that's excruciating.
Issy said, making sure the stone was still in full view of the two people.
Okay, not to make myself the center of attention here, but I think you both need to do whatever I say, for I am your mistress.
Yes, mistress.
Stated both blank people.
I'm going to try very hard not to enjoy this.
Issy said with a grin. 3 months later.
I hate weddings.
Jean whispered to Issy.
You do?
Jean whispered back.
Why?
If two people love each other, why do they need some big ceremony to show the world?
Jean said, shaking her head at the flowers, decorations, huge cake, and people dressed not too impressively.
Would you rather they show it on a bed with everyone watching?
Issy joked back.
I would be more impressed and entertained than this.
Jean nodded at the quickly melting ice sculpture of the Statue of Liberty.
You do realize this isn't about you.
Issy commented.
It's about them.
I should never have let you give them back their free will.
Jean muttered.
It isn't like you had a choice.
Issy said back.
I think we were all getting a little power hungry here. He wanted the world, you wanted the building. And I just wanted you.
And I want you.
Jean said almost automatically.
You know, you weren't into women before that necklace.
I know.
Issy admitted.
I also knew I wasn't happy. I am happy with you.
Even if we fight sometimes?
Jean asked.
Even if we fight, sometimes.
Issy answered.
All couples fight, sometimes. It's how they resolve. The reason why they're fighting is how people grow together.
I guess that sounds so much like a greeting card it has to be true.
Jean said, taking Issy's hand in hers.
Did you ever want to get married?
Sure.
Issy said as the music started to play.
In my younger years when I thought it was important. Now, more than anything, I wanted to be happy with someone special in my life.
Am I special?
Jean asked, knowing the answer.
Of course you are.
Issy said, and then quietly so no one could hear.
Slave.
Jean shuddered with pleasure.
The end. This was a work of fiction. Any similarity between people, living or dead, is purely coincidence. This scenario did not, or should not, have happened in real life. Thank you for listening.